Hello and welcome everyone to today's Women's Health Tech Wednesday special edition episode. I'm going to be your host for today. My name is Ansley Bowen, and it's so great to have you all here for today's episode. As most of you know, Nina is our beloved host of Women's Health Tech Wednesday, but today we're actually switching roles, and I have the pleasure of interviewing her and recognizing Nina as she was recognized as the top 200 trailblazing leaders in women's health and femtech. I want to quickly cover over some major points of this article from Women's of Wearables to give some background on the importance of this recognition. Despite the growing awareness of the need for innovation in women's health, certain areas still remain taboo, marked by significant data gaps. For instance, it is surprising that even today, women are still diagnosed on average 4 years later than men across 770 diseases. Additionally, women are more susceptible to fatal heart attacks, adverse reaction to prescription drugs, and routine dismissal of their pain by doctors due to the medical mysteries of their bodies. In 2023, breakthroughs in technologies have led to the development of innovative solutions for women's health concerns. From AI-powered diagnostics to wearable devices catering specifically to women, these advancements have contributed to a more personalized and effective approach to healthcare. 2023 also witnessed a surge in awareness and advocacy efforts surrounding women's health issues. Prominent voices within the industry, along with influential organizations, played a pivotal role in raising awareness about the unique challenges women face and the importance of prioritizing their health. In response to the team at Women's of Wearables has created a comprehensive list spotlighting the incredible innovators, investors, researchers, entrepreneurs, and advocates who have left their imprint on the field of 2023. So I would like to congratulate Nina again as being recognized as one of the top 200 trailblazing leaders in women's health and femtech. Although you do not need to give an introduction, as most of our audience is familiar with you and all the great work that you do. Nina, if you would please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So excited to be on the other side of the interview. And thank you so much, Ansley, for all of those, kind words. I'm so honored to be recognized. And, one of a brief intro. When I'm not a Women's Health Tech Wednesdays host, I am a consultant at KAISER Permanente's Innovation Lab. Have been with the team for about 6 years, which is crazy to think that it's been that long. We are in Southern California, but because technology is universal, we really work on a lot of great initiatives that are focused on California, but also the broader kind of national initiatives as well. So really excited to be here on this side.
It is great to have you, Nina. Again, congratulations on this great achievement and recognition. I'll just go ahead and start it off by asking you this question. How does this acknowledgement resonate with your professional journey and your achievements?
Yeah, I feel like for me, I think as I was, number one, just really resonating with the article and everything that you had mentioned when we really think about a lot of the gaps that we see that disproportionately affect women, that disproportionately affect women of color. And I think the fact that there is just so much activity that's really seeking to address this, that in and of itself is so awesome. And as I'm just going through the list of people that were, recognized, 200 amazing innovators, leaders, so fearless. And I was just thinking about all the other fearless innovators that I know personally that are doing all of this amazing work in women's health and femtech. So it just made me feel very, very proud of just the community that we have of just badass people, doing good work and being change makers.
And Nina, again, all the work that you do for our Women's Health Tech Wednesday series has been amazing. And for you to also just recognize the community of women, especially moving forward in 2024, I'm really excited to see what 2024 has for women's health specifically. And as a question that I've actually always wanted to know, and I'm sure our audience as well, what inspired you to pursue being a host of a women's health webinar series?
Yeah, absolutely. So to answer this question, excuse me, I have to take it back to 2020. That was when I first heard of HitLab, and it was actually a virtual symposium that you all had kind of put on. And this is like deep pandemic. Everyone, I think, is just itching for any type of socialization. Mm-hmm. And I joined this event, and I just loved the community that was really fostered with HitLab. I think, being in KAISER land, that's kind of a lot of who And so being able to see and meet other professionals that are doing incredible work in so many other disciplines was really amazing. And it was just something that resonated so deeply with me. And I knew that I wanted to kind of participate, to be a part of this community in any way that I could. So I more or less emailed Stan and I was like, put me in, coach. What do you need? Like, how can I help? And I started as an ambassador, which is also a plug for anyone. Being an ambassador was really fun and awesome and just a great introduction to HIT Lab. And then as this Women's Health Tech Wednesdays launched, I think in 2021, I was asked to be a host every now and then. And I think the rest is history. So
Yeah.
I love it so much. I'm so happy that I get to be a part of this community.
And it's been a pleasure working with you for the past year in Women's Health Tech Wednesday, and just the way you interact with all of our guests. It's great. We make a lot of connections. You really are able to have this great conversation with other women. Women supporting women is always great. So super glad to have you as our host. And additionally too, can you share a pivotal moment or an individual that perhaps motivated you to make more of a significant impact on this field?
That's a really good question. And there's, I think, so many people that I can turn to that have been such great like mentors towards me. But when I think about like influential, pivotal person, it is actually, I would have to say, my grandmother.
Aw.
She was actually a nurse, a KAISER nurse back in the day. So I have KAISER blood. And she was, really like the matriarch of the family. She brought the family over from India to pursue, nursing. And I don't know if anyone lives with nurses or interacts with nurses, but I just remember her from a young age just teaching me not only about like discipline, being very intentional, methodical, but really she just loved the healthcare industry. And I think it was through her and seeing like the purpose that she had, the joy that she had, knowing that she can make an impact, I think just really stuck with me. So yeah, I would have to say her.
Oh, that's wonderful, especially that, like you said, Kaiser blood that runs in the family. And definitely, you're carrying her with you and everything that you do. And I think it's wonderful that, you have a history of women that are having a really great career in healthcare. And speaking more of your professional journey, like with Kaiser and women's health, can you provide, an overview of like what your professional journey has looked like with women's health and then specifically digital health as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, thinking about healthcare, it really started to click for me, I would say, in school and college. I knew kind of going into university that I loved, healthcare, medicine, that kind of realm. But for me, I think the two paths that were presented to me as someone who had a general interest in this space was either, a healthcare provider, doctor, dentist, nurse, etc., or academia and research. And I did both. I interned at a genetics lab, which was so interesting and fascinating. I did a lot of shadowing and working in, clinics and hospitals, and they were all just really great professions, but nothing really clicked for me. And it wasn't until I think my second year joining a student organization. It was a peer-based health education group that was housed within like our student clinic at UCSD. And essentially the thesis of this organization was, there's a lot of health information that's really important, but sometimes it's best when you hear it from other students. It may resonate a little bit more than, hearing it from an adult or someone that maybe is not able to communicate it.
Right.
It's this idea of shared language, which I thought was really cool. And so we put on a lot of events. We got to specialize in particular areas. And I think we all know which one I did, women's and sexual health. So I guess it was destiny. And I think during that and really realizing that there's just so many other ways to kind of be a part in this broader like health and wellness space and make an impact that's not these two identified career paths was really, really like eye-opening for me. And I think it was that, and then a combination of like cognitive science classes, business classes that I took, that made me kind of realize, okay, there's a sweet spot here of health and wellness, technology, business, and if I can find it, I think I'll be good. And I did, which is like amazing.
Yeah, I think that, as we're kind of going through school and that whole process, we think it has to be an either or, like you have to fit into a
Totally.
specific category. And if you don't like love this specific one, then, what are you doing? So I think it's great how life works out and it kind of puts us into places where we find things we didn't know existed. And then the fact that you're able to use the business aspect as well as your health and the passion that you have for women's health together, to do what you love is amazing. And although it sounded like it worked out for you, were there any specific challenges or milestones that also shaped your path as well?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I actually think for me, it was this kind of like realization in school was a lot harder than I anticipated. And I think it was
Mhm.
because I think when you are kind of set on a particular career path, whatever that looks like, for me, it was easy when there were, you know, these traditional milestones in place. Okay, in order to do this, you have to do, in order to
Mhm.
be a doctor, you have to take the MCAT, in order to, etc. And I think I had a lot of family members that were kind of strewn across, health providers, worked in research, worked in industry. And I think what's a little bit scary is when you're kind of trying to find your footing and you
Mhm.
feel like you don't have others to kind of turn towards. So I think for me in the beginning, it was really disorienting when you kind of went from a specific career path where there were so many other people that you can look at and kind of almost mirror and model to feeling like you're alone. And I think that's why I gravitate so much towards community, because I obviously know that that's not the case. And so I think for me, that was something that I had to like come to terms with. And I think that just made me realize that just there's a beauty in not having a set path towards something too, as scary as it is. So I think
Right.
that was a challenge. And I even feel like now, as I'm like in my career, as I'm, there's just so many amazing opportunities. And as I've kind of had to navigate my career, I just always have to remind myself of, just because it feels unknown, that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. That's sometimes a really great thing too.
No, I love that. That's a really great words of advice actually to go off of, is oftentimes we feel uncertain and we kind of want to like stray away from it because we're like, oh, it doesn't feel right. But then that's not necessarily the case. It's just because it's unknown and we have things to learn and we could end up falling into something that's much more better for us, for our career and for our community. So I love that. And speaking of kind of on that, path of finding your community, finding your place, what do you feel like are some key contributions or achievements that you are particularly proud of, specifically within the realm of women's health or femtech?
Yeah, of course. I mean, maybe it's too on the nose, but very proud of being a Women's Health Tech Wednesday host. I think that is a huge one for me. And I'm also really proud to, I think, of the work that I get to do at Kaiser. Um, so with my particular team kind of sitting within innovation, really what we do is kind of take a human-centered design lens when we look at the types of projects that we're working on. So as a consultant, it's almost like I wear two hats. One is your, traditional like bread and butter consulting, and the
Mhm.
other is a lot more, I think, research driven. It's like human-centered design research. And really when you're able to do that, I've been very, I think, privileged to be able to talk to patients. That's a lot of what we do in our projects as a human-centered design kind of lens. You're
Mhm.
constantly going in, you're talking to people, you're talking to patients, and you almost become their voice. They're telling you these really, really impactful, meaningful, sensitive things, trusting that you will take this information and do something with it to improve something, to impact something. So just the fact that I think there's so much trust in that, and it really is a privilege that people are telling you these things, knowing that you're going to go and hopefully do something amazing with it. So I think being able to like have their voice is really, really an achievement, I think.
No, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, we can have all these specializations, we can have all of these, passions for life, but at the end of the day, it's really our voice and what we choose to do with our voice, and especially represent others with our voice, is what's going to make the most impact and the most meaning on creating innovation and changes specifically with women's health. So I love that. And the fact that you obviously represent everyone else's voices so well with your work in women's health, you're a big advocate for it. So I would say that their trust is definitely, well put in you. And any, talking about like your leadership and kind of your approach that you go about with your work, do you have any specific principles or philosophies that you kind of go off or that guide your work as well?
What's that quote where it's like the rising tides lift all ships? I think that's like the quote about like just bringing everyone up. And I think that is something that I really, really try to employ. And I've been very lucky that I kind of from the minute I joined like the workforce, I have had, my bosses, other folks on the team that were more senior that really kind of took me under their wing, that really kind of allowed me to still feel like I had something that I could say and something that I could bring to the table, and really just be advocates. So I think I'm very grateful that I've had great people to look towards, that I can just say, yes, I want to do more of what exactly they were doing. So I definitely feel like that's just a big part of it now, being in positions of like leadership and being able to just take all of those things. And I what it feels like when you are kind of newer and like the ingenue, and to then like, remind myself of that feeling and to bring others along, I think is really great to do.
And ironically too, I know a lot of our questions that you ask other attendees is, what is your opinion on mentorship, or do you have any role models? Like, are you a mentor? So I want to flip this question back on you. So have you had any mentors or role models that have really influenced your journey? And then to second that, how do you approach mentorship to others?
Yes, the answer is I love mentors. I have so many. And I think for me, it's so funny. I feel like and I think in terms of like my approach to it, there's a lot of flavors of mentors, right? So I have like mentors within my team that I can kind of turn to, within KAISER Permanente, within the broader women's health organization, just, life advice in general. I feel like there's, being able to have like that diversity when it comes to people that you turn to for advice, I think is so important. And I think for me, like mentorship, it is a relationship. It really is being able to kind of build a rapport with someone and just really learn. I always take the mentors that I have really as a position of, I just want to learn from you. Like I just so, whether it's a specific career path or something that they're working on or a skill set, that's definitely kind of how I view it. And I think for me, like I am a big fan of a LinkedIn like message, a cold call. Honestly, I've done it a lot. People have done it to me. I think there's just no shame in all of that. So I definitely really, really, I feel like mentors are what have got me to where I am right now. Just when it comes to the different career paths that are available, to all the various like things that you can do. And I think it's so incredible that there are so many people that are really like wanting to pay it forward, that really are looking to kind of just support you in whether it's advice or anything more tangible, like being an advocate or a champion for you. I think that's also important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Nina's LinkedIn is in the chat. So if you may get a couple of cold calls after this, but definitely mentors play a huge role in everybody's life, career, personal. I think whether we realize it or not, someone who, is as close to you as, like you said, your grandma, I feel like was maybe your original mentor. And then, that slowly kind of, evolves into being more work related or personal, mentors that you have, but they're such a huge, huge role. And I think it's so great when we see, other leaders in the field that have been, in this career for like 20 or 30 years, that they give back to their, their younger peers. So I always love to see it. And I'm glad that you also have had, some great mentors throughout your career. And, given that your experience, so kind of moving a little bit more towards like the future of women's health, what emerging trends or innovations do you foresee happening in 2024?
Oh my God, there's so many. I feel like I'll try to keep this brief because I love, this is just like a fun, I go down, like, I think we all love going down an internet rabbit hole. I definitely do that a lot, especially with this, but I think that, there's so much that we can say about AI and about the applications of telehealth and all of these amazing, devices and therapeutics that's being employed right now. But I think two that I've been noodling on, and also very curious to kind of hear from the chat as well. But I think something that I've been seeing a lot is really around, I think the best way to describe it is like quantifying yourself, or like the quantified self. So really just, being armed with like health information about you. And I think for me, whenever I used to think about wearables, it was always like Fitbit for your steps and like a medical device.
Right.
But now with, right, like now with like the Oura Ring and the smartwatch, there's just so much health information that's out there. And also now too, with so much like diagnostic testing that's giving you information about, you know, your gut microbiome, your hormones, all of these different panels. Not only is all of this health information available, but what's I think so interesting is that there's a huge appetite for it, just wanting to be armed with this information. And I wonder, I think a lot of it is really from just being able to talk to patients and just kind of what I've learned as well. I think it speaks to this broader idea of wanting to be empowered in your health, wanting to know what's going on with you. And I think a lot of it too is wanting to be an active participant in your health with your
Right.
doctor and your care team. And so I think it's really interesting to kind of see how technology is really empowering people to feel like, I know what's going on with my body. I have a say. I know what I need to communicate to my care team. And I think that's really amazing and beautiful. And I think the Women of Wearables organization, I think really spoke to that too, about the need to kind of be an advocate to use all of this to be empowered in your health, which I think is, you know, really incredible.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this on many past episodes too, but women are often, you know, they're the head of the household when it comes to their medical care. They put everyone else, you know, their kids, their partners in front of them, and oftentimes they don't get seen or checked out or do even their daily checkups. I mean, yearly checkups as much as they should. So having these wearables that they can wear either on their finger, you know, their wrist, whatever that may be, that can help track and keep them more in tune with their body and their health, I think is going to be huge. I mean, we've seen even with the Oura Ring has also partnered, you know, where you can track your menstrual cycle, you can track your fertility, all by wearing a ring. That's going to be a huge game changer for women as more and more women, you know, are able to use these wearables. So I'm super excited for this as well in 2024. I think that we're definitely have seen like, okay, we need to do something to keep these women more in check with their health, and what can we do?
And what's really interesting, so you when you brought up the menstrual cycle, I think something else that's also, I've been seeing this a lot, is really like wellness and like natural methods as well. And what's funny is I saw this a few months ago on TikTok, but I'm sure it's on social media in general, but there's so much content about, you know, like fitness and the foods you should eat for each phase of your menstrual cycle. A lot of these like, you know, wanting to kind of, it's almost like maintenance health of just wanting to do all of these things yourself. And I was talking to one of our OBGYN sponsors for a project, and she was telling me that people are coming into her clinic and asking like, hey, like, how do I do this? So it's also really interesting to see, I think it's like the tech information and metrics, and then I think just awareness on like other types of, whether it's natural, whether it's more integrative health. I think it's interesting to see, it's almost like your toolkit of like health information, which is pretty awesome.
And I think too, like while on this subject, now we're able to more talk about this more openly. Like we're able to talk about, you know, menstruation, we're able to talk about fertility, we're able to talk about like, maybe if you know, you're into fitness, like what should you do and not do during certain phases of your menstrual cycle that helps better your mind, your body. And the fact that we're able to use platforms like social media and then wearables additional to be able to just create a more welcoming community for women so they can like get information and feel that they are taking care of their body. I'm overwhelmed with excitement for it. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because social media can be a very good platform for information. You know, not all the time, of course, but social media can definitely have a great influence in 2024 with how we view and talk openly about subjects like this as well.
100, yeah, it really is a great platform, like to destigmatize a lot of things. This is what I've seen with it. So
yeah,
which I think is very needed. So I'm so excited that is going to just hopefully keep happening too.
Absolutely. And although we are seeing, you know, some great things that have happened in 2023, like we've mentioned, what do you still think are the biggest challenges within the women's health and femtech space? And do you see us overcoming them in the future?
Yeah, I definitely think I see us overcoming them. I think really for me, one of the big things is, I mean, we can't have a conversation about health without talking about health equity and just really realizing that there are a lot of, you know, vulnerable populations and disparities that exist. And I think for me, a lot of it is, and I kind of see this too, just working at KAISER and the work that we do around this being very intentional. How are we designing for everyone, right? Like not everyone has access to,
Right.
like, I just think about COVID times and I think about like digital health. Not everyone has access to a smartphone. So there were workarounds that we had to do around that. Not everyone has access to Wi-Fi or even just peace and quiet, like you're a separate room that you can, you know, talk to your doctor. So what are the workarounds around that? So I think it's really going to be about, I think, being very intentional and designing with that in mind, and being very, like, not only just including it, but designing for that too. So I feel like that's going to be a big one that I'm excited to kind of see us overcome. And I think a lot of it too is, I'm also I think I'm excited about this because I think it's going to be just a great challenge. But I mean, thinking too about like generational, like cohorts, like a silver wave is what I hear a lot about. I know that's coming, just so much, you know, work that's going to need to be done. I think that's also a huge priority for a lot of health systems when we think about like our senior care and really supporting and empowering them in their health. A stat that I found, which was crazy, this was done by Blue Cross Blue Shield, I think it was in 2019, but it's that millennials are the poorest and we have the most comorbidity. So like hypertension, high cholesterol, things that I didn't realize, but that's also, you know, that's coming down the pipeline. So it's a lot of those types of things I'm curious to see. And I know like we're gonna, you know, solve for it, but I think those are some of the things where, you know, like interesting to see how all of this stuff it's going to be coming soon. So
Yeah. And I hope at the end of 2024 next year, we can have the same conversation, and hopefully we can talk about all the great things that we did, that we've talked about, you know, in this conversation, and take it to the next level to address things. And we are almost at time. I know time always flies by when we do this, but I have to ask you this question, Nina, because this is your favorite question you ask everyone else. So I'm excited to flip this question back to you. What would be your words of advice to your younger self or other women out there in the space?
Love that. Love that question. I would say, I think the biggest one is just ask. I think that's how I got, so that's how, you know, I got so many opportunities, is really just asking. And there's also this quote that I found on Instagram that I kind of liked. So I'm just going to share it, but it goes something like, when you feel like you're in the dark, you haven't been buried, you've been planted, which I really like. So I feel like that's also a good thing too, whenever you feel like you're, you know, like not sure what's going on, you're stressed, etc. This idea of you're being planted, there's something new that's coming.
Right. A growth that's coming out of the darkness. Yeah.
We love it.
Absolutely.
We love exactly.
You just need a little water and sunshine and you'll get there.
We're good.
Thank you, Nina, so much for all the work you've done for this whole year. It's been a pleasure working with you, for being a host for Women's Health Tech Wednesday. Honestly, you are so deserving of this recognition. And thank you so much for joining me today and flipping the script. It was a pleasure as always. And we will look forward to seeing you back in your normal host position next week. But thank you again so much, Nina.
Thank you all so much. And we'll see you all next week too. Thanks, Ansley.